For 15 years, Alice Cullen has been the beating heart of the Twilight Saga's light, a bubbly fashionista with a pixie cut, a perpetual smile, and the uncanny ability to see every possible future before it unfolds. She plans surprise parties, designs wedding dresses, and saves her family from certain death a dozen times over with her quick wit and perfect timing. To the world, she is the most blessed of the Cullens, gifted with a magic that turns chaos into control, blessed with a perfect love and a forever family. No one suspects that the brightest light in Forks was forged in the darkest hell of 1920s psychiatric care. Her precognition is not a gift from the gods. It is a scar, a neurological wound carved into her brain by electric shocks, isolation, and the systematic erasure of her identity. The little girl named Mary Alice Brandon died screaming in a padded cell in 1920, and the vampire who rose from her ashes carried only the survival mechanism her broken mind had forged to outlast the torture. Every flash of future sight, every split-second decision, every carefully curated happy moment is a defense against the terror that never truly left her. Before she was Alice Cullen, she was Mary Alice Brandon, born in 1901 in Biloxi, Mississippi, to a wealthy family that valued respectability above all else. From childhood, she experienced faint visions of the future, glimpses of things that would happen days or weeks later. To her family, these visions were not a gift. They were an embarrassment, a stain on their perfect reputation. In 1920, at the age of 19, they had her committed to the Mississippi State Lunatic Asylum, signing away all legal rights to their daughter and telling everyone she had died of tuberculosis. This was not an unusual fate for women in the 1920s who defied social norms. Any woman who was too loud, too independent, too emotional, or who dared to claim she saw things others could not, could be labeled hysterical and locked away forever. Asylums were not places of healing. They were prisons. Women were beaten, starved, sedated, and subjected to brutal experimental treatments in the name of medicine. For Mary Alice Brandon, the worst of these was electroshock therapy, a primitive, unregulated procedure that sent violent currents of electricity through the brain, scrambling memories and destroying personality. Her family never visited. They never wrote. They erased every trace of her existence, burning her letters, her photographs, and her childhood belongings. They wanted Mary Alice Brandon to be forgotten, and for a time, they succeeded. The electroshock treatment stripped her of almost all her memories. She forgot her name, her family, her home. She forgot what it felt like to be loved, to be safe, to be free. All she remembered was pain. All she knew was the cold of the padded cell, the smell of disinfectant, and the sound of other patients screaming down the hall. This forced erasure of identity is a classic trauma response known as dissociation. When the human mind cannot escape an unbearable situation, it detaches from itself, creating a new identity to survive the pain. Mary Alice Brandon died in that asylum. The girl who remained was a blank slate with only one instinct left: to survive. It was in this state of total dissociation that her brain began to change. Stripped of all external anchors, stripped of her past and her identity, her mind turned inward, developing a new sense to protect her from the danger that surrounded her every waking moment. The mechanics of induced trauma. How pain rewired the brain. For decades, fans have accepted Alice's precognition as a random supernatural quirk, a side effect of the vampire transformation. But the truth is far more tragic. Her ability was born long before the venom ever touched her lips. It was forged in the asylum, in the fire of repeated electroshock and endless isolation. The vampire venom did not give her the gift. It simply froze what her brain had already become. Modern neuroscience tells us that extreme trauma physically rewires the brain. Chronic stress and repeated pain alter the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and survival, making it hypersensitive to threats. This state is called hypervigilance, a constant, exhausting state of scanning the environment for danger, where every sound, every movement, every shadow triggers a fight or flight response. For trauma survivors, hypervigilance is not a choice. It is a survival mechanism. The brain learns that the world is a dangerous place, and it never lets its guard down again. For Mary Alice Brandon, trapped in a cell where pain came without warning, hypervigilance evolved beyond anything humanly possible. She could not see the guards coming down the hall. She could not hear the orderlies unlocking her door. But her brain learned to anticipate the patterns. It learned to read the tiny, invisible cues that preceded pain: the creak of a floorboard, the change in light, the sound of footsteps approaching. Over time, this ability stretched further and further, until she could see not just seconds into the future, but minutes, hours, days. This is the true origin of her precognition, hypervigilance, elevated to supernatural heights by the extreme trauma she endured. The electroshock treatments that destroyed her memory also broke down the barriers of time in her brain. They scrambled her neural pathways, allowing her to process information faster than any human, to see the causal chains of events before they unfolded. Her visions are not magic. They are a neurological adaptation, a scar that became a weapon, a survival mechanism that outgrew its original purpose. This explains the single most defining feature of her ability. It only shows futures based on decisions that have already been made. Alice cannot see a fixed future. She can only see the consequences of choices. This is not a flaw in her gift. It is the very nature of it. Her brain was trained to anticipate immediate, imminent pain based on the actions of others. It learned to read intent, not fate. It learned to see what would happen if someone chose to hurt her so she could prepare. Even as a vampire, this limitation remains. Her foresight is still rooted in that small, terrified girl in the cell, scanning for the next blow. Fractured sight as a defensive shield. The shattered mirror of the mind. She moves through the world like sunlight through stained glass, bright, delicate, and forever fractured into 1,000 shifting pieces. Her laughter is sharp as crystal. Her wardrobe a parade of silk and sequins. Her smile the kind that makes strangers believe in happy endings. We see the bubbly fashionista, the girl who plans weddings and surprise parties, who always knows exactly what will happen next. We do not see the little girl locked in a padded cell, screaming as electric current seared through her brain, scrambling her memories into shards she could never put back together. Her precognition is not a window into a fixed future. It is a shattered mirror, reflecting only the fragments of intent that her traumatized brain can process. Every flash of sight is a survival reflex, honed in the dark of the asylum where danger came without warning, where pain was the only constant. This is hypervigilance, elevated to supernatural heights. Her nervous system never learned to turn off. It scans every face, every gesture, every possible timeline for the hint of a threat, for the echo of that cold rubber electrode against her temple. She does not see the future because she is blessed. She sees it because her brain will never let her stop looking over her shoulder. The fragmented nature of her visions is not a flaw in her gift. It is a scar. Trauma does not store memories in neat chronological lines. It splinters them, hides them, lets them resurface without warning as flashbacks and nightmares. Her psychic lens works the same way. It cannot show her a complete, unbroken future because her own mind was never allowed to be complete and unbroken. Every disjointed flash is a piece of the little girl who died in that asylum, screaming for a family that had already erased her. This is why she plans everything down to the smallest detail. This is why she hates surprises. For most people, surprises are fun. For Alice, they are terrifying. A surprise means something her brain did not anticipate, something she could not see coming, something that could hurt her or hurt the people she loves. Her carefully curated life of parties and fashion and perfect timing is not a sign of frivolity. It is a defense mechanism. By controlling every aspect of her environment, she creates a bubble of safety in a world that once taught her that nothing is ever safe. Even her bubbly personality is a shield. If she is happy, if she is bright, if she is the one making everyone else laugh, no one will look too closely. No one will see the fear that lurks just beneath the surface. No one will see the little girl still trapped in that cell, still waiting for the next shock. She does not pretend to be happy. She chooses to be happy. It is the greatest act of rebellion she could ever commit against the people who tried to break her. The vampire transformation, a preservation loop of eternal vigilance. The vampire who found Mary Alice Brandon in that asylum was not a monster. He was a rogue vampire named James, who had taken pity on the terrified, broken girl. He knew that the asylum was going to kill her. The electroshock treatments were getting worse, and she would not survive another year. So he turned her, not out of malice, but out of mercy. He gave her eternal life, hoping it would free her from her pain. But the venom did not heal her. It preserved her. Vampire venom freezes the human body and brain exactly as they are at the moment of transformation. It locks in every emotion, every instinct, every neural pathway. For Alice, this meant that her brain was frozen in a state of perpetual hypervigilance. The survival mechanism that had evolved to keep her alive in the asylum became a permanent supernatural power. She would never again have to fear the guards or the electroshock, but she would never again be able to turn off the part of her brain that scanned for danger. She would spend eternity seeing the future, not because she was blessed, but because she could not stop. This is the great tragedy of Alice Cullen. The thing that saved her life also condemned her to a lifetime of unrelenting alertness. He can never relax. She can never let her guard down. She can never have a single moment where she is not seeing multiple possible futures unfolding before her eyes. Even when she is holding Jasper, her brain is working overtime, scanning every possible timeline for the hint of a threat. Her relationship with Jasper Hale is the only thing that brings her any peace. Jasper, too, is a survivor of trauma. He spent decades as a soldier in the vampire wars, feeding on humans and killing without mercy. He carries the scars of his own violence, and he has the unique ability to feel and manipulate the emotions of those around him. When Alice is overwhelmed by the weight of her visions, when the fear becomes too much, Jasper can calm her. He can take away her anxiety, if only for a little while. He understands what it means to carry a darkness that never goes away. Their love is not the grand, passionate romance of Bella and Edward. It is a quiet, gentle love between two broken people who found healing in each other. They do not need grand gestures. They just need each other. Jasper is the only person who can make Alice feel truly safe, if only for a moment. And Alice is the only person who can make Jasper believe that he is not a monster. Reclaiming the narrative. Finding Mary Alice Brandon. Again, for almost a century, Alice lived with a void where her memory should have been. She knew nothing about who she was, where she came from, or why she had been in that asylum. She had only her visions, her family, and Jasper. But the void never went away. It lingered at the edges of her mind, a quiet ache that reminded her that a part of herself was missing. In Breaking Dawn, she finally finds the missing piece. While searching for a way to save Renesmee from the Volturi, she discovers her own grave in Biloxi, Mississippi. It is a small, unmarked stone, forgotten by everyone. But for Alice, it is the first link to her past. Standing before that grave, she finally remembers. She remembers her name. She remembers her family. She remembers the little girl who loved to run through the fields, who had visions of the future, who was taken away and locked away. Finding her grave is not just a moment of closure. It is an act of reclamation. For the first time in almost 100 years, she is not just Alice Cullen, the vampire with the gift of foresight. She is Mary Alice Brandon, the girl who was stolen from her family, who survived the worst horrors imaginable, who refused to be broken. She reclaims her identity, not by going back to the past, but by integrating it into who she is now. The little girl who died in the asylum is not gone. She lives on in Alice, in her strength, in her resilience, in her capacity to love. This is the true triumph of Alice Cullen. She did not just survive the asylum. She did not just survive being a vampire. She took the pain and the trauma and the horror that had been inflicted on her, and she turned them into something beautiful. She turned her scar into a gift that saved her family a dozen times over. She turned her fear into a determination to protect the people she loved. She turned her loneliness into a love that healed both herself and Jasper. Alice Cullen is far more than the cheerful sidekick she appears to be. She is the most complex, most resilient character in the entire Twilight Saga. Her story is not a fairy tale about a girl who got magic powers and found true love. It is a story about trauma, survival, and redemption. It is a story about how the things that break us can also make us stronger, how the scars we carry can become our greatest weapons. Her story resonates so deeply because it is universal. So many of us carry scars that no one can see. So many of us have learned to put on a happy face to hide the pain beneath. Alice Cullen is a mirror held up to all of us. She shows us that we do not have to be defined by our trauma, that we can survive anything, that we can choose to be happy, even after the worst things have happened to us. Now I pose these questions to you. Did this analysis change how you see Alice Cullen? Do you now view her precognition as a survival mechanism rather than a gift? Do you think her relationship with Jasper is the most authentic love story in Twilight? And most importantly, do you see a little bit of yourself in her, in the way she hides her pain behind a smile? Leave your detailed thoughts and arguments in the comment section below and share which part of Alice's story resonated with you the most.